Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm here to tell you more about Uzbekistan. In fact, today we're going to talk about the city of Samarkand on the Silk Road. So I've always heard of Samarkand as a sort of like legendary, fabulous place, and never thought I'd actually be in the neighborhood, so to speak. And as I'm here in Tashkent, Samarkand is just about a 2-hour train trip away. If you take the fast train, ticket costs you like, I don't know, $16 or something like that. So pretty cheap. You can get down to Samarkand in just 2 hours. Once you're here, you'll find out that the modern city is kind of sprawling. The historical places are a little spread apart, so you might want to think about hiring a guide or someone who knows where to take you if you have a very limited amount of time. Both the days that we visited Samarkand, we had to leave by around 4:30 to catch our train, so we didn't have a whole lot of time. We couldn't linger too long at some places, so the fact that we had someone who helped us, get to places, and she had a driver, really helped us out a lot. Her name is Firuza, and I'll put her contact information down below in the description. I would highly recommend using her if you come to Samarkand. So the first time we came to Samarkand, the very first place that we went with Firuza was the Mausoleum of Timur. Tamerlane is what I always heard him referred to in the United States. But Timur was his name, and he and his sons and a couple of his grandsons and his teacher are all in this mausoleum. Construction of the mausoleum was started by Timur's grandson, Muhammad Sultan, and includes the burial of his sons Shahrukh and Mira Shah. His grandsons, including Muhammad Sultan, also Ulugh we'll talk about a little bit later, and also includes Timur's teacher, Said Baraka. Now, originally it was supposed to house Muhammad Sultan, but because Timur had plans to be buried in his hometown, but he died while away from Samarkand, which was his capital, and the path to his hometown was apparently blocked by snow, so they brought his body back to Samarkand and buried him in this mausoleum. So I'll show a picture of that. Timur's body is underneath the dark jade marker. These markers don't actually have the bodies in them. The bodies are actually in the crypt underneath. They're just showing you where they are under the floor. So next we went to the Registan, which is a place you're going to see in all the pictures of Samarkand. It's probably the most famous site and most visited spot, probably. In front of it is a public square where there was a bazaar and also where public executions were carried out. So there are 3 madrasas here at the Registan. The oldest, the Ulubek Madrasa, was started by Ulugh himself. He was a great mathematician and astronomer, and this was built between 1417 and 1420. And Ulugh actually taught here and was considered one of the best universities in the Central Asia in the 15th century. The second madrasa to be built was the Sherdor Madrasa, which was built between 1619 and 1636. You see animals depicted on it. As you may know, in Islam, it is not permitted to show people or animals in the art, but apparently there's an exception made if the animals are just fantastical mythological creatures, and so these animals are supposed to be animals out of myth and story. They're not actually real animals. The third madrasa to be built was the Tilya Kori Madrasa, which was built between 1646 and 1660, and this also housed a mosque and had little bitty rooms for the students to live in. Next, we visited the Bibi Khanum Mosque, which was built between 1399 and 1405 on Timur's orders. His vision for the building apparently was so ambitious that it really stretched the building abilities of people at the time. Consequently, having it built to his specifications meant it was kind of falling apart from the get-go. For some centuries, people kept trying to repair it, but eventually kind of gave up, and it fell into ruins. And an earthquake in 1897 collapsed some of it, but when the Soviets took over the area, they decided to start restoration. The Soviets are gone now, but the restoration does continue. The last thing we got to visit on our first trip to Samarkand was the Shah-i-Zinda. Probably not saying that right. There are a lot of steps here, so just be forewarned, my arthritic knees were not happy, but it is very beautiful. It's an acropolis. It was begun in the 11th century, and mausoleums were added until the 19th century, but most of them do date from the 14th and 15th centuries. So just be aware there'll be a lot of steps, but it is very beautiful. So, if you can get up the steps to see it, it's definitely worth it. On our second trip to Samarkand, the first thing we went to was Lubecks Observatory. It was built in the 1420s, but it was destroyed after Lubeck's son had him assassinated, and the scholars who were here at the time were forced to leave. That was in 1449. So no one really knew where it was until 1908. A Russian archaeologist named Vasily Vyatkin rediscovered it. So now people know where his observatory is, and Vyatkin was buried next door. Well, next door. He's right there on the site. So now you can visit the remains of the observatory, and Vyatkin's grave is also right there. So we also visited the Afrosiyob murals. One of them is behind me here. The one behind me has geese on it, and it says the paintings of the geese probably depict the geese that are being used for the Nowruz celebration. And so Nowruz is tomorrow. Actually, it is a spring celebration here in Uzbekistan. There's been some music going on outside my apartment today. I have no idea what's going to go on tomorrow. Apparently Nowruz is a little bit like Thanksgiving in that people like cook meals for their families and kind of visit family, but also it's celebrating spring, so people do get outside and enjoy the spring weather. So I'm hoping that we do have some spring weather tomorrow because it is supposed to be rainy, but we'll just have to see. In any case, these murals are from the Sogdian period, so they are from the middle of the 7th century and were probably painted between 648 and 651. They're originally from a private house of an aristocrat. So on the various walls of this room where these murals were painted, I think it had various people being depicted. So there are Koreans, Turks, Chinese, Indians on each wall doing various things. Some of the figures may be local gods, and maybe the king, or both. Some of it is missing, so we don't really know what all of it looked like, but they are very interesting and definitely worth going to see. We also visited the Mausoleum of St. Daniel, Daniel of the Old Testament, Daniel Lion's Den Daniel. His traditional burial site is in Susa, which is in Iran. Other places also claim to be his burial site. I think there's a place in Morocco that claims to be where Daniel's buried. This particular spot, although it's dedicated to him, no one believes that he's actually buried there. So it's more of a traditional pilgrimage spot in a sense, but it's not really a place anybody believes Daniel was actually buried. Some of the things we got to do also was to go to the carpet factory in Samarkand. This was started by some Afghans, a man and his daughters. They fled Afghanistan some years ago. They were only able to bring one loom with them. They had a carpet business back there in Afghanistan. So when they got to Samarkand with their single loom, they had to start basically everything over from scratch, and they had built up this carpet business. They do carpets in various designs, Uzbek designs, Turkish designs, Afghan designs. These are in wool or silk. And you can see how they are made. You can see the women working on them. The woman who took us around, the daughter of the man who started it, she said they will train anybody from anywhere. So if you have 3 months and you want to come sign up and be trained to make silk carpets, you can do that. She does warn you that you'll have to have a lot of patience. So one of the rugs we saw has something like 1,220 knots in each row, and apparently the woman who's tying them can get 5 rows done in a day. So obviously, if you are looking for a pretty big rug, that is a significant investment of time. It might take a year or so to get that rug made, and consequently, since they are hand-tied and they are silk, and they do take so long to make, they are really, really expensive. So if you want to buy a silk carpet from there, you're going to be prepared to put down some thousands of dollars, but they are beautiful, and I'm sure they are worth it. We did buy a wool carpet, which was more on the affordable side for us, and a few smaller pieces.
Around another one. We just close from this way, we just close from this way.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we join it together, so it becomes a knot.
Uh-huh.
And when it becomes a knot, it's tight.
Yeah.
And then we cut it. Like this knot, she has to make 1,222 knots per line.
Yeah.
So for that, they have to be fast. Like this, to make it faster, they have to do like this. So it's experience makes
Sure.
us fast, yeah. And always when they say about like quality of the carpet, it depends to the work inside of the carpet. When we finish one line, front and behind, we will put a weft between front and behind threads. And that threads, we will press it like this. So it's just for showing you I did, but the original one comes from here up to the in one thread and from over there again back. So as much nicely we press, the carpet will be tight and good quality. And then
you can also see where they some of the things they use for dyes. They'll use walnut shells for gray. If you just boil the walnut shells for a little while, you'll get a sort of gray color for the yarn. And if you boil them for longer, then you'll get more of a rich brown color. They use pomegranate rinds for pinks, and there was an asparagus for yellow. And I don't remember the name of the root, but there's a root they boil to get the orange color. So they're making these with the natural dyes. I think indigo was the only color they had to import. Otherwise, they're making them on site. So we also got to visit a place where they make paper. Today they're kind of doing it more or less for tourists, but originally Samarkand was known for its paper. It's made from mulberry bark. So first they have to separate the sort of yellow underbark from the brown outer coating.
So, in 8th century Chinese, the Arabs captured several Chinese and brought them here to Samarkand, and one of them was master of paper making.
They then boil it and then they pound it for several hours. What comes out feels like wet cardboard, kind of looks like wet cardboard. That is put into some water and sort of allowed to float on top, so you get this real thin layer of this pounded stuff, and the person making the paper sits the screen underneath this layer of paper bits, pulls it up, and then if they know what they're doing, the layer of paper there on the screen is even and fills the whole screen, and you dry that and you have a piece of mulberry bark paper, which apparently is quite durable, and some of the books we saw in some of the museums are actually made of that particular kind of paper and has held up over the centuries. So that's pretty cool to see, and they do have a little gift shop if you want to buy something made with Samarkand mulberry bark paper. So I don't really have anywhere to recommend to eat in Samarkand. We did eat at a club center, which was very good. I couldn't find it again though, but if you use Cruz as your guide, she knows where it is and can certainly have the driver drop it all off there for lunch. I'm sure there are a lot of great restaurants in Samarkand, but with us only being there for a few hours each time, we didn't really have a lot of chance to compare, restaurants. So talk to your guide about that, whoever you get to guide you around the city, and I'm sure there's some place that's really great to eat that we did not get to try. As for where to stay, we stayed at the Camila Boutique Hotel, which was very nice. It's just off the sort of back of the Registan, so we could look out our window and see those buildings. And when we went out to try to find some dinner, we just sort of walked through the Registan gardens to the big street in front of the Registan and walked up and down until we found some place that was open for dinner. And there was a place called something like Golden Hot Dog, and they do hot dogs and hamburgers and chicken nuggets and things. So nothing very Uzbek or mysterious. Just get yourself some a hot dog or a cheeseburger or something. But it was quick food. It was easy to find, and it was a nice place. So I hope you have a chance to come to Samarkand and do all the things that you'd like to do, see some wonderful sights, eat some good food, and just enjoy wandering around the city. Remember to hit like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I will see you for some more stuff on Uzbekistan shortly. Bye-bye.
yourself.